We are here. Hi to everyone / no one, people watching this later, people tuning in right now. My name is Katie Dalebout. I made this workshop, Let a Podcast Out, a couple years ago, and I love it so much because I love podcasting so much. And I think the reason I love podcasting is because it's a way to connect people who are really far away and maybe close together. It makes the world feel smaller. And it's just been honestly one of the best parts of my life. I've learned so much from listening to podcasts and being a consumer of podcasts. And I've learned so much from hosting a podcast, interviewing, and also meeting the people who I've gotten to meet through the listeners of my podcast, including Maria, who is here with me. Maria, say hi.
Hi.
We met because you listened to the podcast, right?
Yes. Yeah, I've been a listener for a long time.
Do you remember how you found out about it?
I think I found out about you through another podcast, actually. Somebody mentioned your podcast.
Really? Cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember which podcast? Can we go down the rabbit hole?
I think it was on Jess Lively's podcast.
Oh, cool. Jess Lively's great.
Yeah.
Hi, Jess. Cool. I'm going to flip this around, but I'll show you out my window. I'm staying at my friend Leah's place, and I'm at her desk in Highland Park, and it's super rainy today, which is like kind of the vibe, but this is the orange tree. Really beautiful, right? And she has this cool typewriter. Okay, back to my face and my crazy, insane hair. I'm embracing like the beach hair from my trip when I'm not even like days away from being at a beach, but it's better to say that than just like my hair's messy, you know? So I was telling Maria a little bit before we started recording and started to be live here, that I really didn't want to do this today, and I couldn't sleep last night, and I mean, I've been sleeping weirdly because I'm jet lagged. So I've just kind of like been on Sydney time in LA, where I like stay up really late and then I sleep in really late, kind of like I'm a teenager. But I had this thought earlier today where I was just like, you know what? I think creativity and connection are more important today maybe than ever. And I was feeling really isolated and alone, and staying in my house that I'm staying in, and I just kept feeling sadder and sadder. And so instead I went out and I got a coffee and I talked to another human being, and it didn't make it go away, but it not cumulatively, it what's the word? Slightly helped. It helped a little bit, and that felt good. And then I came home and I did something creative. I wrote a little bit, like a tiny thing that I've been working on, and I like wrote a little bit on that. And then that like moved the needle up a tiny bit more. And so those two things, connection and creativity, helped me emotionally feel a little bit better. And with that, I realized that doing this today is probably great, honestly, because online learning might be more useful and needed, and connection remotely than ever. So I'm really grateful to have social media on a day like today, where we can feel, you know, I'm still very much in process with this, and this is not a coronavirus Instagram live. This is something about podcasting, but I felt like I couldn't not address the elephant in the room, and it's hard to talk or think about anything else. And I think everyone's sort of feeling that way, and that's why I thought, is it in poor taste to do this? Does anyone care? And maybe no one cares, but I don't think it's in poor taste. I think if anything, it's maybe useful. So here I am. And I think connection and creativity are the most useful for my mental health, and maybe useful for yours too. So starting a podcast was one of the best things I ever did. I am a cheerleader for podcasting. I'm not an expert in it, but what I call DIY podcasting. So that's, podcasting along a full-time job, podcasting with a friend because you think it's really fun. My friend Abby's here. Oh, I love her so much. She complimented my messy beach hair, first of all. And she's one of the guests in Let a Podcast Out. We have these guest speakers, podcasters who completely open up the hood of their podcast and show you how they do things. And one of them is Jess Lively, who we mentioned. Maria found me through her podcast. And another one of them is my friend Abby. Abby and I have known each other since college, and she has been a guest on my podcast. And she started a podcast with a friend of hers really completely for fun. Completely because it was something that they thought would be interesting and fun. And they have this really cool Grey's Anatomy podcast that they drink wine and talk about Grey's Anatomy and are hilarious and so fun and cool. And now they have this really cool community behind it. And they have this like amazing Patreon. I'm a patron, not to brag, with cool, but it's just awesome. And it's been a real, like Abby can speak for herself. She's here. On like what maybe Abs, you can tell people in the comments what podcasting has meant to you and like why you keep doing it. I love this medium so much. I think it's a really welcomed phenomenon to slow us down. And I think we're so starved for connection and emotion shared. We're so starved for intimate conversations that will settle to eavesdrop on other people having them, which I'm really happy podcasting exists for. But also we could be part of those. We could take, something that it's like you can be involved in a TV show or you can be involved in a podcast that you love by starting one yourself. I always say this, but podcasting, I believe, is the new networking. Asking someone to do your podcast won't necessarily make that person your friend. And usually you're asking someone you're admiring or you think is interesting or you want to learn from. But I'll say this, a lot of people who I've asked to be on my podcast, I have become friends with or have become mentors of mine. Not always, but sometimes. It's a really, really nice perk if you're doing an interview show. But there's a million types of podcasts that you can do. So with that, this is a podcasting workshop. So if you are here with a podcasting idea, if you are here with just like an inkling, a tiny inkling that you might want to start a podcast, and you have a question for me or you want to workshop something, feel free, type it in the chat. If you have a question about podcasting, about like how to get it to iTunes and Spotify or like logistical things, totally cool. Ask away. I'll answer everything I can and I'll get you an answer for anything I don't have, which is probably a lot. If you have questions about the actual workshop and how it works, feel free. If you have questions really about anything at all, we can talk about podcasting. We can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Podcasting, like what you're listening to right now, what you're finding joy from, what you're annoyed with. This is a safe space. That's everything. However, we're going to start while you guys are like percolating on your questions. Maria has a bunch of questions that were submitted previously that I'm going to go through and like cruise through those, and then we'll get to the questions that are asked here, and we'll go from there. How does that sound? How is everyone doing? I got myself a cup of tea because I'm freezing. I also have this not sponsored but very very open to Oleopop. Have you guys had this? Have you had this, Maria?
No, I haven't.
Oh my god, it's so good. I have this strawberry vanilla flavor. It's like
That sounds good.
So you have your tea, I see there?
I do have my tea.
What kind of tea are you working with?
It's a burdock infusion.
Ooh, we love an infusion.
Yeah, I'm studying herbalism, so.
Oh, you are?
Doing lots of infusions, I am.
Oh my god, did you know that I was just with my friend who's an herbalist in Australia?
I didn't know she was an herbalist. That's really cool.
Yeah, has this book. My friend Erin, Plans for the People, she's going to be a guest on my podcast. And she's going to start a podcast one day. Anyway, big herbalism fans. We had a really cool herbalism podcast started in the last round. And the coolest thing about Let a Podcast Out is that to incentivize people to actually make a podcast and actually use the workshop, I have a contest. So at the end of each semester, people can submit a full episode or a clip of their episode, and I listened to all of them. And we got so Maria knows this because she helped me like gather them, but we got so many submissions, and I listened to every single one of them. And then I choose one to air on the Let It Out, my main podcast feed. And it's cool because then it gives people, kind of a jump start of getting an audience to their podcast, because I've been doing that for nearly a decade. And so there's like quite a hefty like group of people who listen to that podcast. And so they get ears in front of them. And anyway, we had podcasts about Jewish studies. We had podcasts about herbalism. We had podcasts about birth. We had this really cool podcast called In Bold Company about talking to women of color about what their culture and background meant to them and how it informs what they do. We had podcasts about Montessori school. We had podcasts about a lot of interview podcasts about psychedelics, podcasts about cannabis. My friend Jack made this really cool podcast called In Too Deep, and he's just like a really interesting, funny guy, and I loved hearing him host it. And anyway, it was just a really cool round. Am I missing any that you can remember, Maria? Podcasts that have been created through Let a Podcast Out? You just made an alumni page for us.
I know there are too many on there. I don't even know if I can remember them, but you can find them on the alumni page on the website.
Yeah, well, maybe you could pop that link into the chat, because
I can definitely do that.
It's really easy to find you guys if you just go to letapodcastout.club. Maria, it was so cool to make this alumni page of all the different podcasts that have been started through this workshop. And this workshop now has been going for over, what year is it? It's 2020. It's over 2 years. And we do it twice a year. So it's been a bunch. And I'm really, it's like one of the things I'm most proud of, to be this kind of doula or midwife for other people's podcasts. And to see the trajectory of people who have made a podcast and made a creative project, because that's the thing here. It's about support. It's about feeling alone is such a bummer. And to feel alone in a creative project as a freelancer is really hard for me. So I wanted to create community that I wish existed. I had someone helping me out when I first started my podcast to take away all the fear and worry about things that I didn't know how to do. And if I can now do that for other people, that's great, and give them resources that they could maybe find elsewhere. But if I can help them find them, and put them in one place organized, that's great. But the really big benefit of this is the community around it. And to see everything that's been created as a result of that on the alumni page was just like a joy for me. So thank you again, Maria.
You're welcome. That was really exciting to see all those too.
Yeah, it super was. Okay. Should we take some of those questions? I think maybe there were some submitted. Will you read the ones let's start with the ones that you have first, and then you just go for it, Maria.
Okay.
Take the
first question is, I'm super interested, but I don't have a clear idea of what I want to podcast about yet. Is that okay?
Do we have a name of who asked this question, Maria?
We don't have a name for that one.
We don't have a name. Okay.
No.
Well, I will say to this person, I wish I knew your name. That's actually perfect. It's actually great to not have your idea. I mean, it's fine if you, it's neutral, I'll say. It's, if anything, positive. If you have a really clear idea, great. You'll have a tiny bit of a head start and you can just kind of cruise right on in. However, that kernel of an idea within the workshop will often change form. You'll often, people will come in with a really clear idea or a clear name, and then they're in the workshop, we're workshopping it, they're getting ideas, they're hearing other people's ideas, and it changes and it morphs. So I would say if you're considering this workshop and you have a really clear idea, be open to it changing. Maybe it won't. Maybe you're like sold on something, it's great, and you just get validation of that, and that's totally cool too. But to answer this person's question, it is completely not a requirement to know what you want to do. If you're just like, I want to make a podcast, I think it would be cool. I have no idea about a niche, about a topic, about whatever. Great. that is perfect. I like you to come in messy. Like, I like things that are half baked or just a kernel of an idea, because that's like a podcasting doula's dream, right? Like, I can help you like kind of mold it and come up with an idea and think like, okay, well, what do you like? And can we do, like, that is my favorite. Like, I wish that person was here so we could talk it out, because that's my favorite thing to do in the workshop. Is like, I say this in the course, but one of the audio lessons I remember talking about this, which is that whatever it is that you choose to be your topic or your niche, make sure it's something you genuinely really like, because you're going to have to sit with it for a long time. Like, you're going to have to talk about it every week, and then you're going to have to listen back to yourself talking about it every week. Then you're going to have to share about it with other people, and then other people listening are going to talk to you about it, and it's just going to be with you. So if you pick a podcast about Olipop, like, you might really like it today, but like, get real sick of it next week. So like, maybe pick something else, you know? But if you pick a podcast about tea, like, who doesn't love tea? You're probably never going to get sick of it. Somebody make a podcast about tea, you know? That's like a really bad example, but hopefully it lands the plane of like, come with ideas, great, but don't feel like you have to have something fully baked to enter this workshop. Most people don't. Some people do. Either way is fine. And I'll guide you through it. I'll hold your hand. Like, I like a lot of hand holding in all areas of my life, but especially in creative projects. And that's what this is. It's hand holding, but also freedom. It's accountability, but in a really nice, gentle way. It's support, but not overbearing. You know, it's kind of like, somebody gave me this, actually it was, this wonderful person, Josh Radner, who did my podcast. He said, it's this analogy on parenting that I think his mom told him, but he says that parenting is like holding a bar of soap. You don't want to hold it too tight or it'll slip out, and you don't want to hold it too loose or you'll obviously drop it. And that's kind of my approach with this. It's like, it's direction and hand holding, but it's also not too much, you know, I think, which is a really nice approach to take in life and in relationships. Okay, cool. I think that, does that answer that question?
I think it answers that question.
Cool.
Yeah.
What else?
So this one is a little bit more about the actual workshop. How much class time is involved week to week for the course, and are the classes live or pre-recorded?
Great. I noticed that my dad is here. I'm sorry I missed your call. I will call you back. I'm working. Not that this is working, but you understand. Okay, class time per week. The course is dosed out over, it's pretty robust, I'll say that. It's pretty like hefty, and it takes you through everything from coming up with a concept, naming your podcast, album art, getting it to iTunes, all of that, as well as interviewing, which is my favorite module, which is really, really large and hefty because it's the part that I enjoy most. And then there's a part about marketing and getting ears on it, and getting it out into the world and eventually monetizing it. So it's dosed out, but it's really simple. And there's also all these expert interviews. So you can really do it on your own time. It's kind of, it's really self-guided. So you can get it all in at one time, or you can, take your time a little bit more with it. But it is dosed out weekly, and that part you can do at any time. We do 2 break weeks. So this course starts on April 1st, and we'll do a break week after the 4th week, and then we'll do a break week after the last week. And what I mean by a break week for the last week is because we do the live workshops. So the workshops are live. They are done on the phone. We all come together. It's really fun. It's about an hour plus. And we talk, we share ideas. It's a blast. It's honestly like I have a great time doing it. I always feel really uplifted and inspired after, and I want to go and record an interview and like do a backflip or something. Like, it's really lovely, and it's this beautiful community. And there's also a Facebook group where that's like a live organism that's just kind of ongoing as well. And so the calls are live, but we also record them and send out the recording. So if you can't make it, that's totally cool. And we do kind of like what Maria and I are doing right now, where all the pre-recorded questions are there. So if you can't make it, but you did have a specific question, I'll answer your question live there and make sure. And I stay until however long it takes. If it's 3 days, I'll stay 3 days, and I'll answer every question that there is, so everyone feels really cozy and supported. All right, what else have we got? I think people are maybe submitting questions here.
Yeah, there's a new question on Instagram.
Okay, I can read it off.
Okay.
How do you decide whether it should be a solo podcast or whether to have guests each time? As a total beginner, I'm scared it will be impossible to find guests on a regular basis. Okay, this is a great question. Okay, so okay, so at first I was trying to understand if your question was about like having a co-host or not, but I think your question, you want to be the solo host. You're wondering if it should be you just talking directly each week, or if you should have guests consistently or at all. So I would say this, and this is essentially what I do. I mean, my podcast is very much a guest interview show. It's very rare when I do a solo episode. I think it's happened like a handful of times. However, I'll say this, and maybe people don't know this, but reasons why I've done a solo episode, sometimes, usually it's been something, to be honest, that I've wanted to do, but it's maybe because I couldn't get a guest that week, or it didn't work out, or something happened with the audio and I had to like think on my toes. And so that is why. So you could do it that way. You could intend to have guests every week, but then if something goes wrong, like have in your back pocket that you could do a solo episode, that's really cool. Or you could bring in a friend that week that's like kind of acts as your co-host, your what do you call that when it's like the Andy Richter to your Conan, or you know what I mean? Like you could have that sort of vibe with someone, and you could just have that person like at the ready where they can kind of come in to help you if you don't feel comfortable just being, you. It's a lot to carry to do like a solo show, especially if you're going to do like an hour. It's a lot because it's a lot of prep, you have to do, maybe write that out or give yourself some notes, or maybe you can just, you're really funny and dynamic and cool. You seem great through this question, your emoji use. So maybe you can do that. Who knows? For me, it takes more prep. As much as I prep for an interview, if I was doing a solo episode, it would take me even more. So that's just something to consider. So if to answer your question, I would say this. I would say, look, if you want to do interviews, you can do interviews, and then have in your back pocket, if you can't book someone that week, you'll do a solo episode. Totally cool. Or you'll figure it out, or you just won't have an episode coming out that week. And like, that won't be the end of the world either. I think we all just need to be more gentle with ourselves in life and in podcasting. Maybe you guys have noticed, like if there's not a sponsor during a week, sometimes I'll just not do an episode that week, and that's okay. And people will forgive you. And I think consistency is very important when you're starting a new project for yourself, for the work. And we talk about that in the workshop, but I think taking care of ourselves and not just, we're not curing cancer here. We're just making things people listen to in their iPods, their earpods, or their like ones with a cord, because I lost mine in Bali. The uncorded headphones are such a luxury. Anyway, I'm really going off at a tangent here. I'm more direct in the workshop, I promise. But my point is to fully make sure the question is answered. You can do both. And in terms of getting guests every week, my biggest advice there is making sure that you have a bit of a backlog. So I will give people a really long, when I'm trying to book a guest, I'm not like, hey, I have an episode coming out Thursday, can we get it in? Like, I'm like, whenever it works for you would be great. And then that's the nice thing about podcasts. They're not live. They're pre-recorded and you can dose them out. So when I went on a trip for 2 months, I had on my computer like 7 episodes that I had recorded in New York before I left, and I've been dosing those out, and that's been totally great. And then while I was in Bali, I recorded one that came out today, actually, you should listen. And I recorded 2 in Bali, and I recorded something in Australia, and so it's all you can just allow it to unfold if you have a backlog. But if you're looking to like just do that next one, that becomes really stressful. So I would say you can totally do guests. It just takes a bit of preparation, and have a couple recorded, have an archive, so then you can dose those out. And then have in your back pocket that you can do a solo episode, or you can do an episode with like a co-host sort of situation, as you go. Cool. I think we got more questions here. All right, I'll read this one. How do I go about asking a brand to sponsor my podcast? Should I choose the benefits, or do I ask them for any opportunities? Okay, so this is someone who already has a podcast, which is cool. So I want to just mention the last module in the workshop is all about sponsorships and monetizing your podcast and the different ways to do that without brand sponsorships. Like I mentioned, my friend Abby, who has the podcast about Grey's Anatomy, has this massive, very cool Patreon community, and that works really well for her. Other people promote their own work with their podcast and use it as a marketing tool for their own work. That's totally cool. Or you can work with brands, which is what I've done. I've dabbled in all of them. We do have a Patreon. Anyway, that's all in there in like specific terms, but I wanted to mention that this person already has a podcast, because a lot of people join the workshop already having a podcast or 2 podcasts, and they want to learn more about up-leveling it, or getting more ears to it, or marketing it, or learning more about interviewing, or learning like developing their album art, or like actually up-leveling their current podcast. So I just want to say that as a blanket statement of like, if you already have a podcast and you want to join the workshop, totally cool. A lot of people do that too. And then you can learn about monetizing it and marketing it, which I think is something that like you don't want to do right away. If you've just started a podcast, to reach out to brands is really challenging. I started a podcast last year with my good friend Serena Wolf about anxiety, called Spiraling. And right out of the gate, like getting sponsorships wasn't our goal, because we were like, we're new. We don't know. We both had pretty robust like other things, so we were able to work some things out, but that wasn't our goal. We did this purely as a passion project that was like something fun for both of us, and we said from day one, if it stops being fun, we're not going to do it. Because I'll tell you right now, to this person and everyone listening, podcasting is not like the way to, it's not winning the lottery, monetarily wise. I think people can cover your costs, which I say in the course. Like I think it's very, very easy to cover your editing costs, cover your time, cover those things. I think that's really possible. But to be very honest, I wasn't able to do that until 2016, and I started my podcast in 2013. So that wasn't for 4 years or what, maybe more. It was completely out of pocket that I did the podcast, and then I was able to, cover my costs and work with some brands. And so in terms of this person's questions, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but she was like, should I choose the benefits, or do I ask them about any opportunities? So I think, like there's so many different ways to do this. I mean, one way is to listen to podcasts that you like and notice who's sponsoring those podcasts. And of those brands, be like, all right, cool that they're at least sponsoring podcasts, some of those brands. So that's at least interesting to keep in mind. And then from there, think about, of those brands that are also sponsoring podcasts, which of those brands do I even like? Do I even want to like interact with? And then have a think about that. And then maybe one by one, reach out to those brands and kind of see how they're doing. And say like, hey, like in the very similar way to how I tell people to reach out to people to interview, I say the way I send an email to someone who I don't know, who I wanted to have on the podcast as a guest, is I'll say, like, if I'm asking Maria to do my podcast, and I hope you do my podcast someday, Maria, I would say like, hey, I'm a big fan of your work. Maria also has a podcast. I'd be like, I'm a big fan of your work. I think you're awesome. I would just humbly ask them to do the podcast after I send them a lot of compliments, and I very earnestly share that their work has been meaningful to me in some way. And then I give them a long lead time, and I just say, let me know. And then I give them a bit of information about the podcast. Like, this is how many people listen to it, and this is who listens to it. Because that information is a bit more important to brands than how many people, who they are. Because brands can get to a very engaged, concentrated group of people, even if it's not large, like women and people of a certain age group are, that's very valuable for people. So you can really speak about that. And then brands that make sense, like for Serena and I with our anxiety podcast, like certain brands didn't make sense, but BetterHelp did. Like it was an online therapy company. Like that really made sense for a podcast where we were talking about therapy anyway. Serena really loves this certain CBD company that we worked with, and we were talking about them anyway. So anytime that's happening a lot on your podcast where you're talking about brands anyway, doesn't hurt to send them an email and say, hey, I'm a big fan of what you're doing. This is what I'm doing. Can we collaborate? And just kind of see. And in the course, I have a lot of like, I have a brand deck that like I made, and I give you a template and you can just plug in your stuff there. And I show you, I completely like open it I like take off my hoodie and I show you everything that I do. And so you can use my templates, my email templates, my PDFs, all of that. But hopefully that gives you some guidance. So like you can reach out to brands, and then whenever a brand reaches out to me, like I get a lot of emails of like, hey, we want to work with you. Hey, we want to work with you. I don't say yes to everyone, just so I can't say yes to everyone who wants to be interviewed on the podcast. I was doing that at first because I was just like, oh my God, people want to be interviewed. Cool. I would say yes. And then I would be having the conversation. I would be like, oh, this isn't as good as when I reach out to someone and I'm really excited about it and I'm very familiar with their work. And it's the same thing about working with a brand. So it's very, sorry guys, my leg is super asleep. Oh my God, it's like completely numb. It's very, very similar talking about when you are reaching out to a brand and when you are reaching out to a person to be interviewed on your podcast. It's like coming with earnestness and really figuring out what's mutually beneficial for both of you. Okay, we have another question here. How long does it take for you to get used to listening to yourself? Among other hesitations, I'm nervous that I will be somewhat insecure about listening back to my voice. Avocado Alley asked that question. Well, Avocado Alley, great Instagram name. All right, look, I get this question maybe more than any other question about podcasting, so thank you for asking it. I have to be honest with you, I didn't really have that, and I think now I super don't have it because I'm so used to listening to my voice for so long, and I have all the insecurities, all the body image stuff, all the am I okay? Does everyone like me? Did I offend anyone? Did I say the wrong thing? All of that. But for some reason, my voice, I'm okay with. I'm okay with right now in this moment. But I know that's not the case for everyone. So here's what I'll say about that. It'll take some time. It'll be weird, but it will go away. And it's just one of those things I think you have to be patient with yourself with, but it's not worth letting that be a block. I'm someone like, I loved giving a group presentation and I weirdly love public speaking and I'm an only child and I kind of have that in me. Not everyone does. And I don't think that should deter you from having a podcast. I think there's lots of ways to support you around that. I think this workshop can be a really cozy womb to like birth you into being able to do that. So that's great. But here's my assignment for you, Avocado Alley. I would say, go out there and send your friends some voice texts. You're here still, I think. Do you already send voice texts? I'm a big voice texter, as Maria knows, and probably know. I love a voice text. I love to receive one. I've got, not to brag, but like on my phone right now, I have maybe like 7 or 8. I've got like an 8-minute voice text from my friend Adam. I have like a 15-minute voice from my friend Erin. Like I have so many voice texts, which are a delight because when it's not raining out like it is right now, I pop in my headphones. Mine have a cord now. I'm really not over having lost my AirPods, clearly. But I listen to this like personalized podcast from a friend and it's so beautiful and wonderful. And I love sending them back. And so that's just my little PSA for voice texting. And it's also quicker. And I think people it's more personalized. I think people like hearing your voice. I've started doing it even in the DMs on my Instagram, where instead of responding, I'll just send someone a quick voice text. And I think it's a little bit weird at first, but then I think they appreciate hearing my voice, and it's a bit more personal, and it's quicker for me than to like answer a really long question. I can just kind of spew on something instead of being like, okay, does that sentence make sense? And let me like, it's a little less, it's maybe more thoughtful and concise if I write it, but if I say it out, it's quicker for me. So anyway, I'm giving you that advice because the more you do it, the easier it will be. So try it in a way that the stakes are lower than you're recording your voice and sending it out to everyone who wants to find it. But if you're just sending a voice text to like your mom or your friend or your sister, that might be useful because that way you can, get that muscle. It's like any other muscle that you can get going. So hope that helps. Let me know, report back. Okay, Maria, there are so many questions coming in that I'm missing some, I think. Do you want to get, or here, I see one.
I think you actually covered the other questions. They were about reaching out to potential guests, which you pretty much covered.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, reaching out to guests. Okay, cool. And if this person who asked the question about reaching out to more guests, let me know if you want more information on that than what I just shared, and I will circle back to it. But while we're waiting for that nice person to ask more follow-up questions regarding reaching out to guests, Maria, will you give me another question from the pre-submitted questions?
Sure. So I think
Avocado Alley, she's going to do some voice memos. Great.
Yay.
Send me one to start, Avocado Alley. DM me one, and then I'll DM you one back. Okay, sorry, Maria, to interrupt. What?
That's okay. So this one is kind of related to the voice thing, I think.
Okay, cool.
How do I overcome the fear of putting myself out there?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely related, but I think that question is a bit more so in like people who you don't know now knowing you and knowing things about you. And like, that's a little bit weird, like that is a little bit strange, but I think we live in a world where, Instagram, unlike Facebook, is for people that don't know you. Like, it's not necessarily like for you to connect just with your friends and like be private. Like, some people use it that way, but for a lot of people, it's like a way to meet other people and connect. And it's a little bit weird, but it's also super cool. Like, Maria and I are now friends and work together, and that wouldn't have happened without podcasting and social media. We live in different places and probably would have never met. Maybe we would have, so I think it's just like understanding it's going to be a little bit weird, but it's also kind of the world we live in now, and it's really cool and beautiful. And then in terms of the fear of being seen, just that's a heavy kind of deep shadowy question. So just sit with that and try to figure out like what is it that you're afraid to, what is it about you that you're afraid for people to see? Like, what is where does the fear come from? That you're afraid that people will find out something, you're afraid you won't be liked, you're afraid, there's all this fear that we have, and I have it too, but I think podcasting is really beautiful for a couple of reasons. Of the different social medias to be seen on, I think it's a really nice one because, first of all, you're not going to be seen. You're going to be heard, and you're going to be heard in this really long form. Do it at your own pace, on your own terms. Prepare as much as you want or as little as you want. Have the notes in front of you. Read. Have another cozy person there with you. Interview someone. You can really do it on your terms that make you shine, that make you feel the best. And in this workshop, my thing with making podcasts is like making people express themselves, like helping people let out whatever it is that they want to let out in the best, most cohesive, calm way that they can. And, I always joke I have a face for podcasting, but what I mean by that, other than being self-deprecating and like whatever, is really that the stakes are low, right? Like the stakes are pretty low with podcasting, like the production value with like having a YouTube channel or, even this, it's like, I mean, obviously like I didn't consider much. I'm like wearing a hoodie and like just showered. But I think that like I considered what I looked like today, and I'm very aware of my face because I can see it, where I think I'm able to be more myself and be more authentic when I'm going to get a prop for this, when I'm just talking into this with no one in the room, you know? And I think it's akin to writing in that way for me, where when I'm writing, I feel like I can be a bit more thoughtful and I can be a bit more controlling of how I'm coming across. And like in video or live like this, it's like whatever just comes out, which I think is beautiful too. But my point is, with, to answer that question of like getting over the fear, it's like, it's a really nice way to start podcasting. Like, it's a nice way to get over that fear. And it's probably a fear that will serve you to work on in other areas of your life, in relationships, in connection in general. I think it could be really beautiful. So I hope that, did that answer that question, Maria?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. What have we got? What else have we got?
So what are the top 3 things you wished you knew when you started, or any other tips you have for starting?
Whew, top 3 things. I get this question like every semester about this, and I probably answer it differently every time. You know, I feel like I'm happy that I didn't know a lot of things, to be honest with you, because I was able to figure them out and then know that I could. I kind of wish I would have known how wonderful it was, you know, like I really, just how great podcasting is. Like, I wish that I would have been able to tell myself 7 years ago, like, just kind of whisper in that person's ear or tell her in her headphones, look, this is going to be really good for you. You should keep doing this. You're going to learn so much. You're going to meet so many people, and keep going. That's, I think, the most important thing that I wish I would have known, because it did get really hard. And there are times when I thought about not doing it, and I wish I would have known that in those low moments, you know, especially at the beginning, because it can be really overwhelming. You maybe only see the super fun part of my podcast and of a lot of the podcasts that you listen to, which are like the interviews and me sharing it. And I love that part. That part has never been a problem for me at all. It's the production, it's the, you know, recording the intro each week. It's, you know, the logistics of an interview. It's scheduling. It's remembering to do all the little things, getting the ads right, getting, you know, more things now than when I started. But like, there's all these logistics that you have to do that like really aren't glamorous and really aren't fun. And so in those moments, I want to remember that it's been the best thing in the world to me. It's introduced me to people all over the world. I'm getting up to 300 episodes, and I'm wondering, you know, I'm starting to forget people that I interviewed. Like, I'm starting to not remember. And I had this experience in Paris this summer when a friend of mine was reading a book, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I recognize that author. Like, I know that person. And she looked at me and she was like, it's Elisa Vitti. I found out about this book because of you. You had her on your podcast in 2014. And I was like, that's right. She's great. Like, I forgot, which is like, maybe says something about my memory, which maybe makes you guys feel uneasy. Or it's just that I've now interviewed 300 people, and I don't think my, you know, great grandma even like knew 300 people, you know. It's just like a cool thing that it makes the world smaller. So that's number one, that like, it's going to be really great. Keep doing it. Number 2, I would just say, like, the parts you don't like, you can get help with. I started off someone doing all the parts that I didn't like for me. It was my boyfriend at the time. And then we broke up, and I had to do them all myself. And I thought I was going to go crazy. And now I don't do them all myself. I have people helping me. And that was really scary, because I didn't think I could afford to do that. And I didn't know how to do that. And I got the support that I needed. And so I would say that, and I'll help you to figure out who to work with and how to do that, or teach you how to do it. And I'm really grateful that I know how to do it. But you don't have to keep doing it. You can stay in your zone of genius, which I think is really important. And the third thing I wish I would have known, what do I wish I would have known, Maria? I wish I would have known that you can change. You can like change your style. You can add another podcast. You can do other things. You can like roll with it. You're not stuck in the one thing. My podcast has had so many iterations. It changed its name halfway through, and that was fine. I've done it in a million different ways, and I'm about to like do it in a really different way coming up soon. And you just have to like make it fun for you. If you keep making it fun for you, it'll be fun for people to listen to, and people can hear when it gets stale. And I've noticed that, and I have to like keep it fun and interesting for me. And speaking of my podcast, I want to go back to a previous question about, remember, Maria, who was the person that asked about, I think two people kind of asked the same thing about being seen and like afraid of being seen. So, you know, the episode that we put out today with Gabriella?
Yeah.
Don't you think that would be a good episode for people to listen to if they have that fear of being seen?
I do. I think that would be a great episode to listen to.
So maybe we can link that one here. So my podcast, Let It Out, which is the podcast I started in 2013, has a new episode out today. They come out on Thursdays. And we had this episode that I recorded in Bali with this really cool person, Gabriella. It was her first ever podcast, which is always cool. She talks about that a bit and helping me with some of my fears of that. And she just might be a cool, she had that fear too. And I think it might be a cool episode for you guys to listen to. So we'll link to that. Okay, I saw another question come through on here. Somebody asked, how long does it take for you to prepare for an episode? That's a good question. So again, the fourth module in this workshop is all about interviewing. And it's like maybe like 4 times as long as all the other modules because it's my favorite part. You know, I really love to like pretend I'm Terry Gross and like read the book and do like watch all their movies and consume their art and like really sit with it. And like, it's one of my favorite things that I can't believe is like kind of part of my job now. So it depends. Like if I'm very familiar with their work, like maybe I don't need to redo all of that and I can kind of just show up and let it unfold. But I always prepare a little bit. So to answer that question of like, how long does it take? I can't really be like, it takes 3 hours or it takes 2 hours because it's really different for every episode. If I'm interviewing a friend, like even that, I'll like really sit with it and I'll have some bullet points. I'll have some ideas. I'll definitely prepare no matter what. That's what I like to do. I also think it's interesting to show up and see how something unfolds. Again, going back to that soap bar analogy, if you were here at the beginning that I used, I think it's about finding that sweet spot with an interview. You don't want to be too over prepared and you also don't want to go in not knowing anything. I don't think that sounds very kind to like be like, so what do you do again? Like I think having healthy curiosity and not knowing maybe every single thing about them is good. I've gone to both extremes and I talk about this in the workshop of like where I used to listen to every other podcast I've ever done to make sure I didn't ask the same questions and to be really, really on top of it. But now I don't really do that anymore because there are more podcasts and more people have done other people's podcasts and I don't want to be influenced by that. So I really put on blinders and I just focus on what I'm curious about. And I have to trust that that will translate to other people's curiosities too, and know that like if there are other questions that they want answered, I don't want my show to sound like I'm reading off a Wikipedia page or just like putting pennies into the jukebox of like them saying the same sound bites over and over again. I want it to be an organic conversation. So it's really about being present in the interview. Like that's the main thing about interviewing. It isn't really so much about preparation or questions. It's about listening and being really, really present and able to, and that's the thing when you're podcasting, it's a bit challenging to be present because you're thinking, oh shit, is this still recording? You're thinking, am I okay? Like, am I offending this person? If you're me and have anxiety, you're thinking just like, okay, am I holding the conversation? Am I keeping the thread, moving the thread forward? Is this cohesive? How is this going to be to edit? You're thinking of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here with this person. Maybe if you're like really admiring to them and kind of fangirling, or you might be thinking like, you know, who's listening? You might be thinking about the audience and like, that's a whole thing for your mind. So there's so many things going through your mind that's a little bit challenging to be present sometimes. But that's the key. And that helps. Preparation can help you to be more present. That's my answer to that. Okay, Maria, what other questions do we have?
How did your audience grow? How did people find you in the beginning, and how do most people find you now?
That's a good question too, and this is something I like to be really honest about too. It's like, look, I started in 2013. There were less people listening to podcasts. It was really different than it is today. So regurgitating exactly what I did won't be the same for you. So it's not really relevant. And I don't really know. I think it's a bunch of little things. But I'll tell you things that have worked for other people, that have worked for me, that I continue to do, that are helpful for people finding podcasts. I think collaborating with other podcasters is the biggest thing. Being guests on each other's show, sharing each other's show, trading an ad on each other's show is really, really, really beneficial. And here's why. It's better than like sharing on Instagram or sharing on social media or even telling someone in real life, because you're hitting people who are already podcast users, which even though there's a lot of people who listen to podcasts, there's a lot of people who don't. There's more people who don't than do, I think. Pretty sure that's true. So with that, by promoting a show on another show, you're hitting an audience of people who are already listening to other podcasts. So that's really cool. And a great part about this workshop is that you can meet other people who are at the same level of podcasting as you, who you can do that with automatically. You can share ads, you can share ideas with, and you can collaborate with, and you can be guests on each other's show. Like, it's really cool. And something that we're doing this year that's new, I don't know if I told you this yet, Maria, but I get, this is like sort of related, but kind of unrelated. I get a ton of questions I get a ton of people wanting to be guests on Let It Out, and I only do so many episodes a year, so they all unfortunately can't come on. But a lot of them are really, really cool, and a lot of publicists reach out with like really cool books and all of these things. And so instead of just saying like, no, I'm so sorry, I'm saying, I'm so sorry, it's not a fit for Let It Out. However, I have this like tiny fleet of podcasts that I've helped make, and they might want to interview you. So I'm making this spreadsheet of like pitches that I've gotten that I can't do to see if you guys in the workshop can do. So that's now a new thing that's part of Let It Out coming up. But going back to the original question, which is about, what is it about?
Oh,
what are we talking about?
I forgot the question. I got absorbed in what you were saying.
That's a weird thing.
How did your audience grow? How did people find you?
Yes. So that's the main thing. I think that was a big way my audience grew, which is being guests on other people's podcasts. I think it's really the thing that moves the needle forward. And then there's a million other things like marketing, right? It's like sharing your work. I also write, and like I've had my work featured in other places, so people find me that way. I had a book come out in 2016, but I think that really came as a result of the podcast, and then that elevated the podcast. So it's a combination of things, I think I post frequently on social media too. So it's like, I think having social media is useful. I think being a guest on other people's podcasts is extremely useful. And then doing other things that you do, like if you're also a writer, you also work in these other spaces, doing that more and then talking about your podcast there can be really useful. Cool. What else have we got? Maybe time for like one more question, one or two?
Sure. Do you have a conversation beforehand with your guests so they have an idea of what you're going to ask, or is it really on the spot?
I like to do it on the spot. I prefer that. I'm really kind of only interviewing friends or people that I know or people that I admire and I'm familiar with their work. And I like that. I like to, if we're going to hang out, I want us to hang out after, because I don't want to, I often will like be with someone at dinner before. If I'm like meant to record with them after, I'm like, oh no, this is so great. Like I want to hold this in for the podcast. So I don't like to. A lot of people do. Sometimes your guests will ask to speak to you before or send the questions prior. And I will do that. But I will also say like, look, my podcast is a really organic conversation. Here's an idea of what I'll be asking. But again, I like to be really present, and this will morph and change as a normal conversation would, and hope that the people are cool with that. And they have been for me always. So it's pretty rare that people ask to see the questions, honestly, in my case. But sometimes they do, and that's what I tell them. So that kind of answers that. I don't know how long we have here before it kicks us off, and I think it's not that long.
Probably not.
But before that, I just want, Maria, can you tell people, like, do you have any thoughts on the being seen thing of like, because you also have a podcast, did you have any like worries about
I think I did have some. It is a little bit scary to put yourself out there,
that? Yeah.
but I think for me, podcasting feels less scary than other ways of doing that
Totally.
because nobody's actually looking at you.
Yes, I agree.
And it's also because it's recorded in advance. It's not quite as much pressure live, so you can like edit things. You don't have to, if you said something that sounded really stupid, you don't have to put it in the final episode that goes out to
Right.
people.
Right. Whereas this, what I'm doing now with people seeing my face live on the internet is terrifying. Podcasting is a breeze.
Exactly.
All right. I think it's going to kick us off any second. But if you guys have any more questions, and if you're watching this replay, DM me. Let me know. I am here for you. Maria is here for you. We're going to send this out to everyone. But you can take a tour of the workshop. You can do the first two modules for free right now. And I'm going to extend. The early bird ends on Friday, but I'm going to extend it. I just decided because I want to, and so much is happening in the world, and people just, I don't know, I'm going to extend it, and I want to offer a discount to anyone who wants to be in this program should be able to be in this program. So if you guys have any more questions for me, thank you. Thank you. Everyone's saying nice things. I love you guys. And if you have any other questions right now about this or anything at all, thank you for your incredible podcast and being you. I'm going to cry. I've been so emotional all day. Thank you. Anybody else have anything? If you guys like doing these lives, maybe we'll do one on @LETITOUT. I don't know if you guys follow our other Instagram account, but that might be cool to do more lives. They're terrifying, but why not? I don't know. Could be cool. So any other questions? Is there like one more like burning desire question on your sheet, Maria?
The sheet that I have.
Yeah, any submitted ones?
I mean, there are a lot of interesting ones. Do you want to answer one more?
Yeah, let's do one more. Why not?
How do you push yourself to make time for your podcast and stay consistent when it's a side project?
Oof, that's a good one. You know, I think it's like it's what you put in is what you're going to get out. So I'll leave you with this. It's like, treat it like a full-time job. I always did that. I picked a date for it to come out. It came out on Wednesdays. And the truth was that for like 2 years, no one was listening. Literally no one was listening. But I showed up as if I had hundreds and thousands of listeners and they were waiting for the new episode to drop, you know, and like that wasn't the case at all. But I was so diligent about it and I was so disciplined. So like do some mental gymnastics in your mind to do that pretending. And I think that will be really useful for you. And then just know, you know, you can always rejigger that. You can always be like, okay, cool. But like, I don't actually want to put one out today. So that's fine. So gentleness with like discipline, treating it like it's a full-time job, maybe getting support, honestly, like support of a creative community like this, or also like having a co-host might be helpful for you if that's really hard, or interviews. If you like interview someone, then it's pretty certain that you're going to need to, you know, put that out, or like they might wonder, and like so you can kind of make these things for yourself that make that happen. Okay, we're being kicked off of Instagram. Going to end right now, but I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Again, the early bird discount ends on Friday, but I'm going to extend it. So, you know, sign up by Friday would be cool, but like also you don't have to, you can wait. Also do whatever you want. You don't ever have to sign up. I'm really happy that you're here. Thank you again. Oh, thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, Maria, for helping me out.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're the best. All right. Love you guys. Let me know if you need anything. I will be here.